morning, and this is Hap May with the Legal Play.
Good morning, and I'm Chelsea El-Azzi, and we are here again with Anna May, our state specialist.
Good morning.
Good morning, Annalie. Today's topic is a follow-up on an earlier podcast we did, which is fiduciary roles in estate and probate. And today's topic is focusing on the role of the executor. And Annalie knows a lot about that because she's been helping a lot of executors, do what they have to do in their roles. So Annalie, can you start us off? Basically, what is the role of an executor?
Well, you might think that being the executor is this wonderful honor, and it is, but it also comes with a lot of responsibility, a lot more than you might imagine. First, as Chelsea mentioned, you are a fiduciary, so you're acting as if you are the person who appointed you, and then the fun begins. First, you have a duty to collect all of the assets in the estate and put your hands on it. Then you need to open an account, an estate account, which requires you to get a tax ID number, which, if you can imagine, then you have to maybe get an accountant to help you to file tax returns. So there's all sorts of things that go into it. It's not just delivering the assets and the jewelry and dividing those type of things. You have to do quite a bit more than that.
And I feel like the complexity of this depends on the assets and property of the decedent. That if it's something real simple, if someone just had a house and a car, then being the executor wouldn't involve a lot. But if there's bank accounts and what would complicate
Bank accounts, I mean, there could be losses. I mean, they may have something that the executor, an outstanding issue, decedent has to sue somebody to cover. In some cases, that may be a relative. That may be the executor's brother in the process.
And selling a house isn't quite as simple as it seems. You have to make sure that it's sold for the fair market value or more. There may be property in the house that has to be sold, so that would require not just having a garage sale or having an estate sale. You have to make sure that the people that you choose or select to host the estate sale are reputable, and that maybe you get 3 different quotes. So it's not quite as easy as it seems.
And one thing I want to ask is there's what's called a dependent administration and an independent administration. What are those? How are they different?
Well, with an independent administration, you're free to do the things that we're talking about without getting approval from the court.
And now that starts, I think, when someone names you as an executive.
Yeah, and we might want to start with how do you become an executive to start
the
process?
Well, to become an executor, you are designated by someone in their will.
That would that be dependent administration? Independent.
First thing.
Okay, so if you're designated in someone's will as the executor and you are able to serve in that capacity, there's no objections to you serving in that capacity. You bring the will to the court, probate the will, say, look, they've listed me as the executor, and then the court is going to issue letters testamentary,
giving you the approval to do that.
Okay, this is an independent executor. They can go do what they need to do.
Correct. In a dependent administration, there may be no will, and then you have to go to the court and ask for someone to be appointed, and then you have a responsibility to go in front of the judge to ask for approval to do anything.
How do you get appointed if no one's in the will? Like, how do they find these executors? How does the court find a dependent administrator, which they kind of have some similar roles? They're just different titles.
Well, no, it's more than a different title. Dependent administrator has to get approved everything. Independent administrator, independent executive, basically has free range to do things only governed by business judgment. In the process, they don't have to go to the court to justify. They don't have to get everything raised. They have to do a final accounting, and that's about it.
So when you're a dependent administrator, meaning like you weren't named in the will, you had to be appointed through whatever process. Everything you do has to have court.
Sell house,
And for that, you have to have court orders a lot of the time, right?
Every time.
it's pretty much.
So Annalee can speak to this.
Well, let me go back real quick because Hap was talking about the inventory and the accounting. You might think that that is very simple, and it can be if there's a house and there's a vehicle and there are maybe 2 or 3 bank accounts and household items that sometimes we group together as jewelry and clothing, household, kitchen items, that kind of thing. But sometimes these inventories and accountings can get very complicated, so much so that you need to hire outside accountants to come in and help. So it can be a little bit, it just depending on the estate.
Yeah, and I know that we're handling a couple very complicated dependent administrations right now where, I think an appraisal has been done on this condo and, there's had to be court orders come through and we're stuck somehow. Just all we're doing is waiting for, the sale to happen.
Another one involves kind of complicated oil and gas interests.
Yeah.
That have to get reported and there's issues about. So
And I like that you mentioned lawsuit because I know that we had a client whose wife was the executive of her mom's estate, I think up in Kansas or Kentucky or something, and then the wife died within a year. And so, mom's estate hadn't been squared off. There was a lawsuit about, trust interest there that our client's now trying to be the administrator of his wife's estate, but then her mom's estate's wrapped up in that. And it can become complicated.
Yes, it can.
And that's,
Sure.
that's what we deal with a lot here.
and that's the case when what happens with the executive. It's probably a different podcast that creates its own issue.
Yes.
It's a process. And a lot of times you get cases where the executor is also a beneficiary. And if they're the sole beneficiary, there's not much conflict. If they're like they're one of 3 children, and you pick the oldest child, the executor, the other 2 children, may have issues.
Yeah, and in an independent executor situation where the person's been named in the will, like we were saying, they're free to take whatever steps they know necessary, without court approval, unless somebody steps in and is like, hold on.
Right. And there's something what would a good business decision be if you're going to sell mom's house, at a price and the terms and the like. What would a good business decision be? And if one of the other beneficiaries says that's not, you're selling it too cheap, or sometimes there's one child will get the house and have to buy the others out. They can just create some real complications. And you need to be careful in this area because this is the kind of situation that breaks a lot of families up.
It definitely can do that. It can pit brother against sister. It can get very ugly, and you really don't want that to happen. So you do your best to go by the books and try and sell everything at a fair market value and that type of thing.
Yeah, and Annalee, in your experience dealing with a lot of these dependent administrations, what are some things that you've come along the way that you think would be good for our audience to kind of be aware of?
For a dependent administration, well, you know that you have to go to the judge to get approval for anything. So you want to make sure when you go to the judge, you have everything in line.
Yeah.
For example, when we wanted to sell the condo that you had mentioned earlier, we thought it was a fair market value, but the judge was not convinced. So we had to go back and get an appraisal by an independent person to confirm that what we were doing was.
And that also time, lucky that we kept our buyer. In other situations, somebody who's got, their truck ready to move, get furniture ready, condo, And you tell, whoa, the judge wants to go get an appraisal. That's gonna take 3 weeks, then we gotta have a hearing. You can lose, you're right. Or
Tricky.
gotta get it right.
Is there something that you would say you've learned with, that you can share with independent executors?
Well, yes, I think the most valuable lesson that I have learned along the way is that when you're appointed, you need to think of everything in terms of the estate. Open an estate account, get an EIN number, any money that's floating around, get it into that account, because you are going to be responsible for inventorying everything and showing the accounting. Any money that goes in, any money that goes out, you've got to keep good records. And I think early on, I didn't realize the importance of that record keeping. It's invaluable. You've got to do it.
And at what point would it be good to involve, a firm in order to assist with this kind of stuff? I know with dependent administration, it would be good just to have, a law firm helping you make sure that your motions, getting all the orders squared away. But I mean, is it necessary every single time as an executor?
No, it's not necessary every single time, but many times it is. And when there is a complicated accounting, it's best to get a firm involved to help with that.
Yeah, and I will say some of the clients that we've brought in recently have been very cognizant of just cost. And if you feel very confident in your abilities, you've got the time and you've got the means to do a lot of the work yourself. I've said, okay, just call us, involve us when you kind of hit a roadblock, and we'll walk you through it. Otherwise, we'll kind of give you the steps that you need to go forward. Just to kind of to manage your.
And that depends on the time available and the sophistication of the client,
Correct,
administrator, executive.
Correct. I feel like a lot of the cases we have come in, it's very overwhelming because there's a lot of property and a lot of different things that have to happen. And maybe who gets named as an executor is like a second cousin first removed that didn't actually, and you've got there's airship issues involved.
An airship issue for the air. Basically, if it's the child, if it's particularly you can see these cases where people don't have children and their parents are deceased, and then they have to go back up and find cousins, and there's a statutory framework for which to do that.
Yeah.
But
and it's not like the independent administrator can just say, well, I knew the guy well.
Right.
So.
Right. There's a process. Then executives got to be involved. I mean, the court gets involved with that, tells them who the heirs are, tells them what fraction each heir gets. And then when it comes out and make disbursements, you have to basically follow percentages.
And even when you have an independent administration, where you're trying to get an independent administration, the judge will come in and appoint an attorney ad litem to represent the unknown heirs. And then the person who wants to be the administrator has a duty to give that person all of the names of relatives, anyone they can think of, phone numbers that ad litem can then go confirm who the heirs are.
In a lot of cases, that's easy because everybody knows who these children are. Children are identifiable. I had one case where there was somebody that knew he had a child with a woman that he knew he was in the Korean War. But had not had any contact with that daughter for 40 years. And died in a way that there was that daughter would be entitled to something.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, and you got to make sure all the loose ends are wrapped up because Texas is going to make sure everyone's accounted for.
And if you know who the heirs are, you know who the executive, you know who the heirs are, and there's some rough edges as far as that. I mean, we can get into these family settlement agreements.
Yeah.
And it could be that says that there's okay, one person wants a house, the other person wants maybe the IRA, the stock portfolio or something like that. We can come to the executor, maybe with the help of mediation, come to a family settlement agreement, which allows the state to finally be very settled. And
We've done a few of those, and maybe I'll put a pin in that for a podcast. We can
Alright.
elaborate on that a little bit. I do want to circle back around to the accounting part because I feel like we do specialize in this because TAP is a
CPA and a lawyer.
and has his own network and resources of accountants that we can do all of it here. The accounting and
Yes.
legal filings and everything. So if you're dealing with a particularly complicated estate administration, or you know that you've got one coming up, let us know. Give us a call.
Definitely.
All right.
We can help you.
All right. This is Half Bay with Legal Play.
Thank you, Emily, for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Hap.